Good evening, everybody. On behalf of myself, the chairman of the HOA of Eleni Coastal Forest Estate, on behalf of the trustees, I welcome all the homeowners who have taken time out to join us this evening. Welcome to the Eleni AGM for the Homeowners Association. I welcome you all this evening. Rensha, can I just jump straight into the agenda and ask you for confirmation of the notice of the meeting and approval to hold a meeting by way of electronic communication due to our restrictions currently in place? Can you confirm that this meeting will be recorded and it will be available for all homeowners who have missed the meeting tonight? And furthermore, that any questions we may miss later, we can then record and follow back on it. Could I have your approval for that, please, Rensha? I think you must unmute.
Can you hear me now? I confirm that all is in place in terms of the MOI to proceed with this meeting. We will make note of who are all present. Apologies. We haven't received any proxies, and I can therefore also confirm that this meeting is duly constituted. In terms of our quorum? We have, in terms of the MOI, Regulation 15.11, that during the financial development period, as well as in terms of Regulation 15.19.
Good, thank you. So can I then go straight into the presentation and consideration of the Chairman's report? Good. So we'll deal with item 6 of the agenda. Dear homeowners, on behalf of myself and the trustees of Eleni Coastal Forest Estate, it is with immense amount of pride and gratitude that I present to you the Chairman's report. As I sat down to pen my opening, I could not help but reflect on our earlier days, the acquisition of this land and the natural wonder that lay before us. The sheer magnificence of it was both humbling and inspiring, and I knew that we had bestowed something truly special to nurture and care for. The 50 hectares of both pristine coastal forest and bushveld was regarded as some of the most exquisite on the KwaZulu-Natal North Coast. And considering that we had purchased it for residential development would require a team of the best professionals to execute our vision. These professionals were not only recognized nationally, but internationally for excellence in their relevant fields for both architecture, landscaping, legal, sales and marketing, and engineering and building, to name a few. To Tina Halstead of Cox Yates, I must personally thank you for walking this road with us. Your advice and guidance has been instrumental as we navigate our way through the various aspects of development, planning and zoning. My personal dream for Elaleni was to be part of a community which had the potential to be a team for life, one where friendships and businesses could integrate, where my wife and kids would be free to interact with other like-minded people. And I dreamt of an environment where I could walk to and from work, journey past friends, their homes, and possibly even pop in along the way to say hi. I longed for an opportunity to take community living to the next level, where the full circle of life was catered for, a place of healthy engagements for our children, our parents, the workplace, as well as fellowship around social eating places, all integrated within nature. In simple terms, Elaleni would become our family's happy place, and to say its special name, a place of peace. To the extended team of professionals who I've worked with so tirelessly to bring this dream to life, I thank you. Our shared vision for this future looks like it is not only bright, but remains acutely personal to each of us. To my partner Ingo, who helped the vision come true, I thank you immensely as well. For the 115 residents who now call Elaleni home, and I want to emphasize that, for the 115 residents who now call Elaleni home, that means there are 115 people living on our estate. There is a firm sense of responsibility not only to preserve the integrity of its origin, but to develop and bolster the structures and systems that will allow it to flourish for generations to come. This task is by no means over and requires refining and agility as we go. Off the back of a challenging year due to COVID-19, the very essence of a collaborative teamwork is what we require most. Although our visions and aspirations can at times seem insurmountable, we have a group of leaders that have put up their hands to support this vision to help us move in a direction of shared excellence. It is my sincere hope that our communities and extended subcommittees that will form over time take hold of this responsibility and revel in the challenge. Our long-standing relationship with both RPSS, Conrad Walls, remains one that is built on trust, integrity, and most important, the highest standard of security. To Frank Labidi and Brennan Knott of RPSS Security, Mark Spears of Conrad Walls, their staff and their teams, we are truly appreciative of your continued focus and support for our estate security. Conrad Walls were appointed to undertake the manufacture, the supply, and installation of the highest standard of security and electric fencing for Eleni Coastal Forest Estates. Their contract also including the provision of CCTV cameras and access control for the contractor's gate, as well as our main residential entrance. Further to this, Conrad Walls were given the opportunity to install CCTV cameras throughout the fence line perimeter, thus creating a full integrated security system for the estate. The service level agreement for the estate's access control and electric fence systems, which is a JVA perimeter patrol system, is one of the most advanced in this specialized field. Our current service level agreement with RPSS Security is a turnkey solution, providing on-site guarding, gate control, armed reaction, and services to include a 24/7 off-site monitoring and tracking via the CCTV and thermal camera images, which are communicated from the estate to the RPSS control room. One of the major strengths of RPSS Security is that they are an exclusively local security company and boast the largest fleet of vehicles in our area. Any activation is backed up by multiple armed vehicles within minutes, with their specialized tactical response team also proving to be a game changer for security in the Greater Sheffield area. Eleni currently has a complement of 2 day guards and 5 night shift guards, with 1 placed at the main gate carrying out access control and 1 at the construction gate managing access control and supervision. During night shift, we currently have 1 guard at the main gate doing access control with 4 patrolling guards. These patrolling guards patrol for 30 minutes and rest for 30 minutes and are using a live monitoring system that assesses if they miss points and or do not start to patrol. If in the event that a guard is unreachable and or does not respond on the device via the 24-hour control room, a vehicle is dispatched in response. Each device has a panic button built in and reports are sent to the control room daily for inspection. Armed response officers check all construction of houses at the close of business daily to make sure all workers are off-site, as well as patrol the estate through the night. I'd like to extend my sincere appreciation and gratitude to all homeowners, our estate management, building contractors, and subcontractors for their incredible patience this year. No one could have ever anticipated that in March, all systems as we know it would literally be shut down. For those who had either begun their build and or were anticipating starting this year, it would have proved a massive challenge. This was understandably a dynamic that we all faced with, and to the best of our abilities was a matter of damage control and negating as much of the risks and the exposure encountered in our relevant fields and scope of work. To Ian and Clyde, Dave Wilson, Mark Nicol, Ingo and Sarah Jane, our development partners and all North Global staff and professionals, both architects, engineers, landscaping and building contractors. I must thank you for your patience and getting us all back on track as quickly as possible. With that said, I feel it is fitting that we recognize some of our achievements this year and the combined success that we are witnessing based on our overall delivery. We are proud to announce that Eleni recently received 2 accolades in the way of the African Property Awards for the Best Commercial Offices, which is the Gates, and our Forest View apartments within the multi-residential category. This is a massive feather in the cap for Eleni, block architects, and the relevant developers and construction teams that executed this vision. We have received recognition from CEOs of some of the leading development companies in the country for our outstanding delivery and overall aesthetic of the estate. Some saying one of the most beautiful estates in the country. Specific reference must be made to Lucas Ace and his team for the mastery in the field of landscape architecture, gardens, and specifically the inclusion of the bonsai collection at our entrance, which sets a breathtaking tone for those that enter this estate. What is now evident is that our own distinct Eleni language is beginning to whisper through both trees and hallways, and it is humbling to see every owner embrace this ethos, our culture and architectural guidelines to express such. With 21 homes now complete, a further 10 under construction, each home has become somewhat of an artwork with an intrinsic value that places it out of the norm of how we traditionally value real estate. There's a definitive differentiator in the design and the quality of homes. And with a further 14 homes currently in consideration via Architects Review Committee, we are excited to see what reveals itself to come. Long may this energy, excitement, and passion continue as we redefine the space and push the boundaries of design within nature. To all our homeowners who have journeyed the process and are either living here already or soon to be, we wish you many years of happiness and peace. The 45 Forest View apartments have become a sanctuary for so many at Elaleni. And with its incredible forest and sea views, who could have imagined a year ago that a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment could trade north of 3.4 million rand? We estimate that in time, these luxury apartments could in fact be the first to exceed the 4 million rand range. To Mike and William Nicol, Block Architects, and the full team from Nicol Projects, your partnership with us continues to be one of immense respect and appreciation. These Forest View apartments have transformed apartment living, and you have delivered a build that harmoniously contrasts the landscape with finesse with style. We look forward to the next chapter in your evolution as you bring the woods to life on Eleni Lifestyle Estates. Lush. As this project heads towards the finish line, a massive congratulations must go to the entire Lush team and your execution of the 90-unit sectional title development. Lush has become so intrinsically part of the Eleni brand, and for so many, offered the opportunity to live the Eleni lifestyle, which has become so sought after. With its state-of-the-art integration, luxury finishes and comfort, Lush has delivered on its mandate to bring multi-unit apartments to the market and that nestle harmoniously within a beautiful surround. A development project of this magnitude requires dedication and teamwork on so many levels. But I felt it important to acknowledge a particular individual for his one-of-a-kind leadership throughout his life cycle. Mr. Ivan Morris, we are all incredibly grateful to the role you have played, and your commitment and steady hand through these challenging times has been a light for so many. We thank you. Our sales and rentals, Eleni Coastal Forest Estate has proven to be somewhat of an enigma within the North Coast luxury real estate space, commanding some of the highest sale rates per square meter when compared to its contemporaries, both land, sectional title apartments, and freehold homes. By way of factual comparison, the average value of land transferred in 2019 reads as follows. Brettonwood, 1.6 million. Dunkirk, 1.8 million. Simbiti, 2 million. Elaleni Coastal Forest Estate and yet unfinished is 2.2 million. That is an accolade I think all of us, including yourselves at home, should really be bestowed. For those who purchased early in Eleni's life cycle, both on sectional title and freehold land, would have seen good returns on their investments by way of capital growth, and we continue to attract a certain type of investor looking for that X factor, the differentiator to put their money behind. In 2017 and 2018, land was selling between 1,400 and 1,600 Rand per square meter and 22,000 Rand per square meter for sectional title. If you fast track that now 2 years, we are now achieving record sales of between 1,500 Rand a square meter to 2,800 Rand per square meter for land, and between 22 and 27,000 Rand per square meter for our sectional title units, both in lush and forest views. The future success story of a luxury gated estate depends on a few key elements. One of them being a passionate on-site sales and marketing team. To Devon, Scott, Greg, Jackie, Kate, and Barry, I must commend you on your commitment, passion, and drive you all share within your relevant field of development, sales, and marketing. So much of the success that we experience is by way of the love you have for Elaleni and its brand, its people, and the various lifestyle products that you market and sell. Another factor that has played heavily into our recent success is the overnight community that has formed with the handovers of both Forest View and Lush Apartments. Both homeowners and tenants are now enjoying the fruits of their patience, and we are living the dream of what we either sold to them off plan or leased on a long-term basis. Our on-site sales team's role doesn't stop at the point of sale. Your involvement in the day-to-day handover process of both homeowner and tenants has been critical to a smooth transition for all investors. Your overall ambassadorship for a community is truly one of a kind, and we thank you. Speaking of rentals, our long-term lease uptake over the last 2 months has been short of remarkable. And off the back of a rather challenging year due to COVID-19, we continue to see lease agreements crossing our desks daily. The consideration around short-term leasing is one that is still being acutely refined, but is sure to add further value to the Eleni brand as travel restrictions ease and the short-term markets pick up. We are incredibly grateful for the surge in activity and look forward to the journey ahead. What motivates us now is the prospect of our new projects and the intrinsic value that they will add on an already impressive estate and lifestyle offering. These are not merely ideas and dreams, but game-changing steps towards our overall vision and goal. The much-awaited leisure centre, our leisure centre, which we anticipate starting the first quarter of next year, is a much-awaited offering that is set to transform our life here on the estate and bring an immense amount of joy and satisfaction to all residents and families. Being family-focused, it will include our leisure centre, social club, swimming pools, tennis courts, with various eating and relaxation spaces. Our Eleni Beach Club, we are also proud to announce last year the acquisition of a property on Saltrock Main Beach, which would make way for our very own Eleni Beach Club. We aim to take full occupation of this property as early as January next year and use on an ad hoc basis with the intention of beginning renovations towards a newly appointed space for all in the winter months. Eleni Gardens, the magnificent Eleni Gardens opposite our main entrance, is literally taking shape as we speak. And by December, we will have completed 18 of the 35 homes. These 2 and 3 bedroom semi-detached freestanding homes are a game changer for our state, and any investor that has a privilege of purchasing there is set to live an entirely unique lifestyle. These Julia Rutherford designed homes will be integrated into a park-like wonderland, including bonsai gardens and gentle sloping grass knolls. The combination of both contemporary and eclectic style will separate these homes from anything currently in the marketplace. Eleni Lifestyle Estate. Eleni Lifestyle Estate is embodied in the next evolution in modern sustainable living. A residential estate like no other, offering a truly unique way of life generally driven by the concept of living off the earth. Here you can own a piece of Eleni Lifestyle Estate with your own bespoke freestanding home where you can live the way you want. That means growing fruit, coffee, cultivating your vegetables, raising lay hens, or having a gaggle of geese in your yard. As part of the lifestyle estate, you'll be making a commitment to living partially off-grid in an estate deliberately designed around edible landscapes. delivered with a finesse that becomes synonymous with our brand. Our Eleni Coastal Forest Estate Homeowners Association is a not-for-profit company with objectives as set out in the state's MOI and is operated by our board and management. As is with any new estate, the balancing act of the function requires constant consideration and can be intensive by nature. The day-to-day management thereof requires quick prioritization, which can present challenges to any planning schedule. Our management is dedicated to this function and remains clear on an overall ideal, and that it is to promote harmonious relationships in the estate. Further to this, our ongoing service level agreement with Property Management Ignite is key to financial management, compliance, and the complex administration of an HIA. To Block Architects, Julia Rutherford, Lisa Rorick Architects, who preside on the Architectural Design Review Committee for approval of building plans, we thank you for your astute work over the course of the last 3 years. So much of the incredible tone and magic that is happening is credit to you. For all our understanding, the HIA responsibilities are as follows: management of finances and collection of levies to execute the objectives of the estate. Manage roads, private spaces, green belts, conservation areas, and servitudes. Protect the natural environment, vegetation, flora and fauna of the estate. Regulate pets, provide and maintain security, manage and enforce the building design code through its design review panel, and manage and control contractors. Manage the estate environmental management plan, manage the aesthetic appearance of the estate through landscaping, building and improvements. Manage and provide bulk services and infrastructure. To these, I would like to add subcommittees. There are various committees that contribute to the running of the estate, and I'd like to thank those volunteers who have given up their time to get involved. As our estate begins to grow, it is clear that new portfolios will come into play, and we are grateful to all of you to step forward to assist in these key management areas via these subcommittees. Our current committees consist of the following: Chairman and Security, myself, Wesley Bench-Capon; Civils and Services, William Nicol; Building Control, Dave Wilson; Finance, Ingo Rolf; and Environmental Parks and Gardens, my wife, Sarah Jane Bench-Capon. I'd like to just emphasize the last paragraph in my subcommittees again, that as our estate begins to grow, it is clear that new portfolios will come into play. And us as trustees would be very grateful for you to step forward to assist us in these key management areas via our subcommittees. Our finances. As we are all aware, 2020 and the dynamic of COVID-19 placed an immense amount of strain on our financial structures and plans for the year. It really tested the robustness of our structures, and I'm grateful to all the directors, HIA and management for their roles in negating the full impact of this pandemic. For the purpose of better understanding the road forward, I've included and attached in your packs a financial report which provides a more detailed analysis of where we have come from and where we are heading. This will be detailed in the Q&A section of my report further on in the agenda. It also handles many of the understandable questions put forward by our homeowners and deals with the solutions and measures we will put in place. Our communications. Over the past 2.5 years, since the first transfers of Elaleni, the HIA has been communicating with homeowners through and via our email newsletters. These newsletters have provided key updates, news, or relevant stories pertaining to the estate. The official blog on the Elaleni website is also now a further active platform for updates and feeds that have been a massive help to all. Due to the unique nature of 2020, there were various COVID-19 protocols that needed communicating to our homeowners. For this purpose, the Eleni HIA hired the services of a communications manager to work half day. Barry Lewin, who is no stranger to the estate, was appointed for the vital interim role, and since his appointment has implemented an independent Eleni HIA website, which serves as an information hub for everything happening on the estate. We encourage all our residents to keep us active in this two-way process, as your feedback and comments and suggestions can only assist in aligning our values, our systems, and the process as we work our way forward. In addition to this, we are also now able to receive communications through the My Estate Life app, news sections informing residents of day-to-day operational matters. We also felt it necessary to set up a dedicated Elaleni HIA email address to answer any questions or handle certain requests for further information. As mentioned above, COVID-19 presented many challenges by way of how we communicate, but in certain respects help us transform towards technology, like platforms tonight, which is Zoom, which has in some ways stimulated our communication. For these purposes, we have developed a communications rollout plan, which will include regular webinars run via Zoom, in order for our homeowners to communicate more efficiently with the HIA and develop directors and subcommittees. One of the most memorable events last year was the opening of the gates, our commercial offices, and the new home for the HIA. On a cool July evening, our car park was transformed into a winter wonderland to celebrate this landmark building and entrance, which has now won an African Property Award in its category for the best offices. It was great to share this opening of the building with both homeowners, professional, and owners of the bespoke businesses that have chosen Elaleni as their address. Our Eleni HIA Golf Day has been well attended and supported since the inception, with our first being more an informal one in the early part of 2019, and then our official Golf Day held on the 15th of October 2019. It was a day when all the big guns came out and some of our old rivalries were settled, with our winning four ball of the day made up of Mr. Ronald Rowley, Greg Simmons, Michael Spears, and Roy Greenwood. This is sure to carry on an annual event for many years to come, and each year will take on its own unique flavor and theme. It seems Eleni is made up of its fair share of the sporty and active, and is inspiring many of either to get out the running or riding gear to join in on the fun. The fun runs and walks have become a regular occurrence on a Saturday morning, where it serves as a place for people to mingle and meet new friends. It is also an opportunity to raise some funds for a few of our local beneficiaries, the likes of the Summerhill House and the Letty Love Foundation. Our Elaleni mountain bike group also kicked off in September of this year on outrides and will become a regular organized event moving forward. For the birders and nature lovers amongst us, Eleni has geo-mapped the estate on the Bird Lasser app, where we coordinate a biannual bird tour for our homeowners and guests, kindly guided by our very loved and appreciated bird expert, Ian Gordon. Our Forest Clubhouse, renowned for its idyllic location and exquisite beauty, had the privilege of having somewhat of its own roof wetting late last year by the way of a 40th birthday party. For those who had the joy of experiencing this night out in the forest, it will be remembered for many years to come. To stimulate both mind, body, and soul, you can now join our very own resident and yoga instructor, Lauren Pinoy, at the Clubhouse for yoga and forest walks. The Hyde Coffee Shop has always been a hive of activity. The idea behind it was to provide a meeting place for our community to do business, socialize, and interact. We have taken this a step further of late, opening each Saturday morning for coffee between 8 and 11. From time to time, we welcome an array of local artisans who supply their goods into the space, all prepared and grown locally, from breads to wraps, juices, and smoothies. We even have our very own hand-picked seasonal fruits and fresh produce feeding into the space, compliments of our own Eleni lifestyle estate. The Letty Love Foundation, most cancer patients out there either don't get to their treatments or get there in a compromised and undignified manner. By the provision of a personalized lift club traveling daily into the townships and areas where these people are. We hope that we can get more people to treatment and can eliminate one of the major headaches these folks have, which is access to transport and mobility. Our support for this fund is ongoing, and it is with sincere thanks to a number of our community members for their support and backing toward our fundraising initiatives. The other being Summerhill House. Our Summerhill Kids partnership kicked off as an informal relationship in 2019 with the fun runs and walks whereby we were able to donate towards this awesome local cause. This has been expanded in 2020 with a more official partnership supplying fresh produce to the home, as well as our event all our event proceeds going to this charity. And on that point, I must say it was truly emotional to see the kids from the Summerhill House picking fresh lettuce and oranges on the Lifestyle Estate farm. It was truly wonderful to see. As we head towards December and our most favorite time of the year, the energy within the camp is by no means on a go slow. In fact, the tails are up and our strategy is clear, and that is to close out the year stronger than ever. I believe this will lay the foundation for the next chapter in redefining the way we do live, not only here on Eleni Coastal Forest Estate, but within our community at large. To all our homeowners, professionals, and extended Eleni family, Ingo and I wish you an amazing close out to what has been a defining year. I honestly believe that we will be forever stronger for it. With many thanks, Wesley Benchkapan of the Chairman of the Homeowners Association. Thank you. If we go back to the agenda, taking note that was the presentation of the Chairman's report, I'm going to ask, I'll put my mic on mute, and I'm going to ask Rensha if you could please give us a presentation of the annual financials compiled and reported on our independent auditor. If you could please do point 7, and then we'll follow that by the appointment of the auditor for the following financial year. Rensha, if you could please take that over. Thank you.
Thank you, Wesley, and good day to everyone. I'm just going to read the report and then perhaps just highlight a few items in terms of the audited financial statements. So the directors are required in terms of the Companies Act to maintain adequate accounting record and are responsible for the content and integrity of the annual financial statements, related financial information recorded in the financials. To enable the directors to meet their responsibilities, the Board of Directors has set standards, is clear and defined framework, effective accounting procedures, and adequate segregation of duties to ensure and accept a level of risk. Clear procedures, verification and orders and payment approvals are in place between the HOA and the Management Office. In terms of the independent review's report, nothing has come to their attention that causes them to believe that the annual financial statements do not present fairly in all the material respects the financial position of Elaleni HOA. I think it's important also that we need to highlight and understand before we look at the financials that due to this development, being a phased development, the current and prior year reflect variances that are not common to both an income and expenditure. We find sometimes when you look at audited financial statements, you tend to compare the last year to this year. And I think this statement is very important to keep in mind when we look at that this being a phased development, and it's still going to take a while until it's fully established that we can look at those variances. Just to give you a bit of a feedback and see how did we develop and where we're coming from. The HOA First Income was recorded from the 1st of March 2018 with a first registration of 18 ERS and a monthly income of 33,000 Rand. As at February 2019, the end of that first financial year, 84 sites were registered, and the monthly increase of those levies amounted to 223,000. As at February 2020, we closed off with 95 sites registered, contributing a total monthly levy income of 250,300. The income of the PUD sites and the recent one, Forest View Apartments Body Corporate, registered on the 1st of March 2020 with an additional levy revenue of 45 units at the same levy that you're paying per owner in that development, which amounts to 110,250, will only reflect in the next financial year because that was registered in March. The levy revenue from 2019 to 2020 increased with 28% versus the expenses, unfortunately, during that same period was 245%. This was mainly contributed to the establishment and increase of operational demand, and therefore has affected the reserves in the first financial year. The projected income to re-establish reserves will be dealt with when we look at the budget and have further levy discussions. The implementation of the additional security and access control systems during this period was high priority. Further increase to maintenance, staff component, and the purchasing of initial equipment and a vehicle during 2020 financial year has contributed to this variance. The collection of debt is an ongoing process, which is monitored on a monthly basis and, if required, will be referred for legal collection. The arrear debt is reduced with 137% from last year to the last financial year end. The required insurance covers are also reviewed annually and up to date. With regards to this report, I'd just like to highlight a few things. So we can also perhaps just focus a bit on how the income is made up for the HRA. You all know you're paying a monthly levy of 2,450, and that's mainly going to contribute to your operational expenses, but it takes it further than that. If you look at the audited financial statements, there are various other income sources, and one is, for instance, the stabilization fund levies, which is two parts. The first ordinary levy, the stabilization fund levy is coming from the first sales from the developer, and then when there's resales, we also collect an additional from the resale part, again a stabilization fund levy, as well as a 1% resale levy, which is calculated based on the purchase price. So those are all additional income sources that help not just with operational expenses, but also to pay for other things that we need to do. To give you an example, when we do an architect review meeting, there's a cost that the owner, as you know, as already homeowners, have to pay. There's a panel of architects sitting around a table that takes time, they need to be paid. There's also the engineers that needs to look and give their input into that plan review meeting cost, which is covered by that income. So it does not come from the monthly operational cost, but from those amounts that are paid by the respective owner. The resale levy that we currently collect is also helping to cover the market communication expenses. So you'll note in the budget that we've not made provision for that because this particular income source is used for exactly that. We also have the ombudsman levy, which is really an in and out, but it is an income that we look at, and then interest, and one, unfortunately, that we get taxed on as well as the access disc. So the access disc is based on each contractor needs to register for their staff to come on. There's a verification process that we follow to make sure that they're all in place. ID cards needs to be printed, and that staff members needs to be monitored. That all costs money, but it doesn't come from your levy fund. It comes specifically from a fee that we do charge to fund that particular expense. Further to the design review committee meeting, there's also a verge deposit that is paid of 25,000 Rand. So that money will be kept aside until the owner has completed its building. The verge inspection will be done to see if there are any damages to the roads or verges, and if all good and we get the go ahead, then 50% of that verge deposit will be refunded to the respective owner. The balance will go again into a slush fund to help us to maintain or restore the normal general wear and tear on the roads and verges. And then actually the last point that they have to pay when they do the plan review is also to pay for the water and electricity connection and meter, etc. The tax is also this year came into play because of these additional income that we've received. There is a detailed tax computation available should anyone would like that. It is working on a bit of a sliding scale. It is technical. I don't want to go too much into that, but should anyone would like to have that, you just drop us a note and I can forward you a breakdown of the exact tax computation which is recorded in the audited financial statements. The insurance is also noted in the audited financial statements, and there's two policies. The one is the general building and just in fittings, the roads, the fencing, everything has been taken in consideration, and the total building section alone is covered for 79 million rand. Our current monthly expense to that is in the region of 3,800 rand. It covers all the other community scheme coverage that is that needs to be in place for a scheme. So again, if you do require a full breakdown of the entire policy, you are welcome to contact us to forward you that. We've also included in October last year, the Clubhouse, which the policy was increased with another 3.2 million to cover that. And lastly, the fidelity guarantee and community schemes cover that is required in terms of the Ombuds services for community schemes for funds to be covered for the HRA. And the amount that is covered currently as directed by the auditors is 2.6 million. And the monthly premium for that is 594 Rand per month. That concludes, Wesley, my financial audited report, and I will like to just request for an approval by the board to accept these financials so that that can be signed off. Thank you.
Thank you, Rensha. Do you need one seconding or do you need two?
My apologies. My apologies. By signing off, in fact, it's just a confirmation that this has been signed as the directors. Two directors have signed the audited financials already. So it is a confirmation and we can continue with the meeting.
Good, thank you very much. So then we can move on to appointment of point 8 of the agenda, appointment of auditor for the following financial year. Can you just let everybody know, Rensha, who we use and who we're considering to
Sure. So the auditors that has prepared these financials were preparing them in not as an audited financial statements, but more an audit review, which is allowed for in terms of the MOI, which was done by Baker Tilly Morrison and Murray. They are auditors that are specializing in sectional title as well as homeowners associations. Their fee is very competitive. I think they've achieved what we need them to do in this audit, and should the board would like to propose someone else, I would alternatively to continue with this auditors for the next financial year.
So from the T side, are there any other nominations, or can you proceed with Baker Tilly Morris? If you're happy, just raise your hand, because you don't have to worry about meeting. I don't know if anyone can hear me. Okay, good. So then we carry on with Baker Tilly Morris, Rensha. Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. Okay. Good. So the next point on the agenda is confirmation of directors in terms of 17.1 of the MOI. Can you confirm the number of directors and the election thereof shall be determined from time to time by the developer during the development period, and thereafter by the members in a general meeting. Is that all in order, Brencha?
That's all in order as per the MOI, if you just read. So there are 5 directors, which is the correct number in terms of the MOI requirement. And as you quite right said in terms of 17.1, that it will be determined by the developer during the development period. The 5 directors, I'm sure you all have been introduced. Their names have also been reported in the reports with Wesley has reviewed in his chairman's report and their duties and portfolios.
Good. So we can cross point 9 of the agenda, Rensha. I just want to mention at this point, now that we've finished number 9, I see there's a whole lot of questions coming through, and that's wonderful to see. Can I just ask that all those questions we'll deal with under the Q&A coming up in another 2 points. So all the questions coming through that I saw, I might have missed a few that were pertaining to the financials, the signing off of financials and how that's run. We'll try and answer those in the Q&A as we go through the questions and answers. Okay, so then can we move on to point number 10, Rensha, which I think is one of the most important items, which is the consideration and approval with or without amendment of the budget and estimated levies for the ensuing financial year. And I think if you could just touch on it, the biggest concern obviously is the deficit. Could you please explain the scenario that while we were in that position, when we will come out of that position, and then obviously the approval of the levy. So could you just round that up for us a little bit, please, Rensha?
Sure. So in a very short report, I just link to, as we pointed out in the audit report, that due to the Elaleni estate still in a development phase, the income and expenditure will continue to undergo changes until fully developed. Future registrations were also delayed due to COVID, which affected the market. The projection graph indicates a positive upswing towards the end of 2020, with Forest View Body Corporate that has been contributing 110,250 towards the levy fund since March 2020. Large Body Corporate income will commence as soon as the first phase of sections are registered, and it's anticipated for the lush levies of 220,500 to be in place by early 2021. Although the current income is still under recovering in relation to the budget, it's proposed to continue with the current HOA levy of 2,450 per member. It's projected towards the end of the year, even with an additional 100,000 per month increase to expenses, that a monthly surplus will be achieved. And surplus fund will be restored. The budget is made up of administration, municipal repairs and maintenance, security operation expenses, and an itemized budget breakdown has been provided, including anticipated and future expenses reflecting in this schedule, but not activated as yet. So I think if I can go to the projection plan, I don't know who of you have printed it as such, but when we looked at that schedule with that graph, if you can perhaps look at that very quickly. I think what we've tried to achieve here is to see where we are with our current operational cost that is demanding. We've also included in our budget future possible, and we know that it's coming, but it's not there as yet. And look at the income. We can only predict certain how many sites are still to come, but we've included the actuals as from March with Forest View of 45 units in this graph, as clearly showing you already the upswing to show the extra 110,000 from Forest View. And once Lush is completed, we noted that that will bring us another 220,000. So in this initial graph, our breaking point is showing January, but I think we will be able to actually bring that a bit forward now that Lush has its first phase of 30 units that is about to be registered. And that alone, just those 30 extra units, will bring us an additional 73,000 Rand into the budget. And if you look at the graph, we have a deficit of about 43,000 from October. And if by November we bring in the lush of 70, we will break that deficit, and by the new year up and running. And I think we were looking at a far better financial position by the end of February with the 2021 financial year. So what are we saying here is that we are still under recovering where we are today. In a month or two, it will look a little bit better, and by January, it will look much better. We will have that line of income going above the expense accounts. And just to keep the levy, I think at the end of the day, what are we saying? We keep the levy the same, 2450. Yes, our reserves have had a bit of a knock, but it was to carry that move over and just establishing the actual operational cost. If we look at the budget in detail, which you can see there's a few atoms and zeros and things that have not been included. I just point out one, for instance, is the security control room. There are not warm bodies sitting there looking at TV screens as yet, but it will eventually come. For now, it's not an operation. We haven't included it, and we'll review that in the new year, or if and when that is going to take place. There are also various repairs and maintenance items, and I think Ian is very involved here. We talk a lot, and Ian, maybe perhaps you can also give us a little bit of help here, you know, just in terms of your plumbing, your sewer, testing water, the electrical components that needs to have a look at by electrical engineers, all of that. It's vast, but I think if you look at each individual budget items that we have itemized and we have provided, you can see we don't just say repairs and maintenance and it's going to cost you R1 million. You can actually see each individual item, what it comprises of. Municipal charges, as we know, we get the bulk in, it then goes in a bulk meter out to Forest View, it goes to a bulk meter to Lush, and then I recover from the individual owners back into the body corporates, but ultimately the body corporate is liable to pay the full bulk supply to the HOA, and it's their problem to recover it internally. There are sub-meters for that. We had a bit of a delay in getting that to you, but I believe that we've managed to resolve, or rather the service utility company resolve their challenges to give us those readings. You will, as you've already noted, get your individual electricity accounts, which is giving you exact detail of your utility consumption, and then from my side, bring that one-liner into our accounting system that you've been billed to also monitor that your utilities have been paid. Would you like to add anything, Jan, just in terms of the budget component?
Thank you, Rachel. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Those line items against which there are no figures tabulated at the present moment, as Rachel quite clearly explained, are costs that are coming down the track at a later stage. At this point, with the majority of the infrastructure being relatively new, I'm monitoring it on a close basis, and more specifically the electricity supply network throughout the estate, which is the critical component that has the highest capital replacement values attached to it. With close monitoring, should I see that we need to do something immediate, then obviously my proposal will be put to the Board of Trustees, and we will have to incur expenditure on an as-and-when basis until such times as we can get into a regimental annual maintenance program of all of that critical infrastructure, being the electricity network, the sewer reticulation network, the likes of our water feature, entrance pumping facilities, and so forth. So the line items that are blank most certainly will have costs against them at the affordability stage, or at a point where I assess that we need to do something immediate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Wesley. Can I therefore, can you?
Sorry, technology catches me too. I just want to summarize for all our homeowners out there about the deficit, because I know that there was grave panic about a deficit in the levies versus the expenses. So in summary, Rensha, is it normal for a phased development to experience a deficit, and is it normal for it to take 2 odd years to recover, to stabilize, and then to achieve a surplus? Is that a normal thing, or is that abnormal? Does it occur on the majority of projects, or is this only unique to Elaleni?
No, I think it's common, and it's, if you look at the operational growth, and that's what I was trying to point out, is the operational growth and the demand to your fixed cost alone. If you look at, for instance, a cost, whether you've got 5 people or 500 people living on a site, you're still going to have that expense. You have a fence to maintain, whether there's 5 people or 500 people. So what do you do in order to not have that deficit? You have to then raise levies of 10,000 Rand per owner versus 2,000, and then you won't have the deficit. And the board so recognise that, and the board just tried to keep it as affordable as possible, in line with what was initially sold. Yes, we had a slight increase right in the beginning in 2018, and managed to pull that through. And I think it's literally 2 or 3 months, and you will then recover from that deficit and start building a financial stable HRA. I do believe that once Lush is there, because your major cost of your operational cost, your budget, I believe, is 90% set. Yes, you're going to have additional costs coming on that Ian has noted, and additional expenses that we might not know about, but not as hectic as it's already in place, if you understand what I'm saying.
I understand that. So what you're saying is your expenses start to stabilize and your income grows, and ultimately,
Absolutely.
like a normal business, your income exceeds your expenses. So I understand that. I think you must be commended on the fact that the levy was increased at 2018 to 2,450 Rand, and it stayed at 2,450 2018, 2019, 2020. So I think that's quite commendable that we haven't had to increase levies, and we're proposing to go forward with 2,450 as the levy again. Am I correct in saying that, Rensha?
Correct, Leslie.
So can I then move forward with the budget, and can I recommend that we approve the proposal to maintain levies the way they are on the basis of how you've presented the budget going forward? Would that be okay?
Yes.
Can the trustees raise just your hand just so I can see an acceptance? So me, yep. Will, Dave, are you there? And Sarah Jane? Good, okay. So based on that then, number 10, we will then say that the budget and estimated levies for the ensuing year are finalised. Rensha, is that okay?
Thank you. Noted.
Is that okay? Okay, so I mean, there's really points 11 and 12 on the agenda. 11 and 12 are any matters raised by the members with or without advance notice to the association. And number 12 is any other business of which due notice was given. Can I recommend that points 11 and 12 we basically treat as our question and answers section, and that we consolidate those into our Q&As? Would the trustees be okay with it? Just raise your hand. Good, okay. So let's go into that then, the question and answers. Okay, we would The Homeowners Association was presented with 32 questions. We've taken those 32 questions and we have given detailed answers to all of them. It is my intention to run through each and every one again. And then what I'd like to do is I see there being questions coming through. So I think I saw quite a few, Rensha, that pertain to the financials, and questions asked, do the homeowners not need to sign on financials? There were a couple others which I saw, but I don't have collection of. Can I just tell the homeowners that if we miss any of those questions, the whole meeting is recorded, and that you'll get an answer on every one of those items that we've asked. But I'm going to try my best to get through every one of them and try to be as interactive as we can be on the question and answers. Ian, I know you don't want to, but I'm going to ask you to just help me out a little bit so that I don't lose my voice tonight. Could you start off with the question and answers? And the questions that I think need to go into more detail, I'll interject and go through them with you. Is that okay?
It'll be fine, these things.
So if you could unmute your Rensha, if you could turn your mute on, Ian, you could unmute.
We'll do that.
And then Ian, if you could just start on question number 1, which would be 11.1. I might interrupt you and just go into more detail if I think the answer needs a bigger explanation. And then we'll need a little bit of assistance to try and pick up the questions that we've been asked. So, okay, Ian, off you go.
Okay. Fine, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're right.
Try now. Yes, it's up. You can go. You can go.
Can I use
I'm on mute. You're right. Carry on. I'm on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies to everybody for our little technical ditch here with our technology. If we will refer to Annexure F, which deals with the questions that were fielded prior to the convening and the commencement of this AGM. 11.1, year end of February 2020 financials. I think Rensha has dealt with that quite explicitly, so I won't read that whole paragraph out in the reply verbatim, other than to say that the question has been answered in point 10 of the AGM agenda. If we move on to question 11.2, the detailed management accounts showing income and expenditure. Once again, those have been provided to all as per Annexure H. The delegation of authority related to expense approval. The estate manager runs the estate takes at our operation expenditure for procurement of consumables and small items, and also vets and approves payment of invoices from service providers with whom standing service level agreements have been entered into by prior approval of the board. Procurement of any capital items carrying higher values are approved and signed off by the board prior to purchase orders being placed. Obviously, with us having followed a form of competitive process where possible. The equipment schedule, at the present moment, the asset register has been provided to all folks as Annexure I. 11.5, the role in the specifications, criteria, and candidates considered in the appointment of the HR management team. If you page through to the end of 11.5, you will note that it says, please refer to Annexure L page 81 of the MOI, Article 41.9, the state manager to be appointed by the developer. From there, I'll go back to the beginning of this section, whereby the makeup of the management team as a whole, taking into consideration the trustees as well. We have our chairman, Mr. Wesley Benchkapon. The trustees with their portfolios are Wesley is the security portfolio head as well as chairman. Mr. Ingo Rolf is the finance portfolio head and deputy chairman. Mrs. Sarah Jane Benchkapon is Parks and Gardens trustee. Mr. David Wilson, Building Control and Design Review Committee, and Mr. William Nicol is dealing with the bulk infrastructure. As was mentioned by our chairman during his earlier address, he made it quite clear in his appeal that any members wishing to actually participate on these subcommittees that are to be established are most welcome, and their input would most surely be very valuable through the subcommittees to be brought back to the actual main board for further deliberation and consideration.
Ian, can I just go into that for 5 seconds? So thanks, Ian, for that. So I just want to emphasize it again, and Ian, you said it, and I'm going to say it again. We've, trustees, have split up what we believe the estate should run on. So if any of the homeowners feel that they can add value to any of these portfolios, being security, finances, parks and common spaces, building control, or bulk infrastructure, what I would like to see would be you put your names forward to the HOA. We will receive that at the next trustees meeting, which we'll have shortly after the AGM. We will go through everybody's nomination, and everyone who wants to be on a subcommittee can be on a subcommittee. There's no distinction. Only thing is you have to be a homeowner. You can join those subcommittees, and I would really like to encourage it, because at those subcommittees, you can deal with whatever item you feel is important to you to understand, or what is important for the state to manage. Those subcommittees will then filter to their trustee who's delegated that specific duty. And when all trustees meet together, your voice can then come through the subcommittees into the trustees to be dealt with efficiently. So thanks, Ian. Sorry to elaborate so much on that, but I think the subcommittees to run a healthier estate is vital, vital, vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To continue, folks, the staffing and service supplies for the HOA at the present time are myself as estate manager, Clyde Milsom, who is managing operations, security, access control and registrations, Barry Lewin, who, as was mentioned earlier, is the manager for our communications platform at the present time. And then, of course, we have our stalwart general workforce in the name of Oscar Zamini and Bongani Mukazi, who I must say do a commendable job, seeing as the time being, it's just the two of them having to cover quite a vast area. It's a bit of a juggling trick. The HOA has entered into service level agreements with the following service providers: River Projects Landscapers, who maintain the high density planted areas in the estate; Conrad Fences, who perform off-site daily analytical checks on the status and the performance of the high voltage and low voltage zones around the security perimeter fence, available also on a call-out basis to visit the site to fault locate, effect repairs and clear permanent alarms. Just on that note, on a daily basis, I receive WhatsApps from the Conrad technical team that give me a clear picture of the entire fence line, showing where any alarms may have picked up. The modus operandi is that in the first instance, we mobilize internally, we go and investigate that zone thoroughly. If we cannot find anything obvious, we then actually call in Conrad for the technical backup and support to try and find out if it is an equipment glitch or what could be causing the alarm to have come up on the actual display screen. So the early warning system that we benefit from that is par excellent. We have RPSS Security, who provide this turnkey security solution with on-site guarding, gate control, arm reaction service, and which also includes a 24/7 off-site monitoring and tracking of the CCTV and thermal camera images communicated from the RPSS control room. Once again, whatever the Conrad team are seeing on their screens, RPSS are monitoring the same. So there is that double backup facility in that respect. Then, of course, we have Property Management Ignite, who are responsible for managing the financial and compliance administration of the HIA. Block Architects, as our chairman mentioned earlier, are doing a stalwart job in respect to managing the Design Review Committee operation and functionality. And then we have SDP Ecological Environmental Services, who are responsible for the operational phase audits, reporting and controls as legislated in the EDTA approved environmental management plan. If we go on to 11.6, the details and the responsibility of the estate manager, if you could kindly refer to Annexure M, which page 41 of the conduct rules covers that aspect. 11.7, please confirm when Lush will commence with the payment of estate levies. I won't really elaborate on that because I think Rencha went into it in great depth in her explanation of the level of levies that are coming in from Lush and the anticipated growth from increasing levies to come from Lush as it goes into the further development.
Sorry, Ian, I'm just going to interrupt you there. I want to elaborate a little bit on the Lush levies. It's not 100% correct. Lush as a developer pays a levy currently, and he pays for that earth, of which there were 2 earths from the date of transfer from the developer being North Global. So there is a levy that came in for the land. What we are talking about, which is the surplus levy we're talking about, is a levy coming in from all completed units on that. So the developer is currently paying a levy, the developer, and the owners, as they take occupation or transfer, carry on to pay the 2450 times 90. So I just wanted to make clarity on that there is a levy being paid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's exactly the same that applied for forestry apartments. The developer paid a levy. When the units were finished, each unit then paid a levy too. That's just to be more clear on it. It's not that there is no levies. There is a levy. However, the amount of unit opportunities only pay their levy on completion or occupation. I hope that's a bit clear. Sorry, Ian, carry on.
Thank you. 11.8, please clarify the details of the rental agreement of the gates between the developer and the HIA. The actual lease agreement has been provided to all as Annexure G, and it is quite self-explanatory. 11.9, the basis for the 2020 budget values. What is written there basically expands on what Rench has already explained, in as much as the budget is a working document reviewed monthly by the managing agents. It forecasts the income and expenditure of the HIA with reference to operating requirements, historic, current, and future. The Elaleni managing agents are mandated to be accountable for the control of expenditure versus budget and income stream via monthly levies, stabilization account levies, fees collections, and fines. Please refer to point 10 of the AGM agenda. Just on this note, as I mentioned earlier, those line items that do not have a budget against them at the present time, if for any unforeseen reason or premature reason we need to incur expenditure against one of those line items, it's discussed with the trustees, and before we incur the expenditure, we obviously refer through to our managing agents, who then give an account of the availability of funds to fund anything that was unforeseen that may have emerged that needed urgent or requires urgent attention. The estate security,
Ian, sorry, can I
there is a
just also,
security
Ian,
report that has been provided as Annexure J.
Ian, I just want to elaborate on that one. So what you've just said there on the budget values, the security, a specific thing that needs collaboration on in terms of the estate security. That expense is probably one of our biggest expenses in the estate. And it's purely based on emotive reasons to protect everyone in the estate. So there's two sides to the coin there. One side is that if you don't spend any money on security, your potential of an intrusion is high. If you do spend too much money on it, you then run the risk of having a kangaroo court because you spend too much on security. So the most important reason for the subcommittee is for everyone who's living here or a homeowner here to come in and say, well, I've heard what the security is at the moment. I feel that we could have less guarding and change to one armed guard, and it changes the budget accordingly. So it's very important what Ian's saying is that these things are constantly moving. We've allocated the budget on our experience and on the last 3 years of actual numbers. And that's why I want to emphasize again, anybody who is either a lawyer who can add legal value, a security guard who can add security or a specialist, a landscaper, or anybody who can add a benefit to a portfolio, whether it be a CA for financials, I really step forward, put your hand up and get involved into it, because that's where clarity and teamwork makes this a better place for us. So I just thought it was important to elaborate on when you're talking about budgets and then you moved into security. And so, sorry to interrupt you again.
Fine, thanks, Chair. If we can then move on to 11.12. The feeling is that the HIA should bear the cost, not bear the cost of the lockdown gate, which is a critical security feature that should be covered by the developer. The estate trustees are divided on the obligations on whether the lockdown gate is necessary and/or an obligation by the developer on the basis of the extreme security protocols in place. The guardhouse is further monitored by CCTV cameras 24/7 to ensure the protocols are followed. There are, in fact, CCTV cameras installed in the guardhouses with the signals and the footage relayed directly back to the master control center at the IPSS control room. So they are playing an oversight role of the staff they have actually on site manning our guardhouses 24/7. The security subcommittee is soon to be formed under the trustees in charge of this portfolio. Once again, our chair, being the head of that portfolio committee, has requested members who feel they can make a contribution and are interested in getting involved to come onto that subcommittee. And it leads into what is stated there, that if any homeowner feels they would like to give feedback or get involved in this subcommittee, please sign up. The feedback from this committee will be taken to the board to assist in the outcome of this request. With regard to 11.13, the alien and vegetation removal program, please confirm whose responsibility it is to remove. On common property, this is the HIA responsibility. Quotations have been obtained from 3 specialist service providers holding necessary registration with DAF, as well as ACTASA for the removal of alien vegetation. If you refer to Annexure K, which was distributed, you will have sight of the 3 quotations that we've obtained to implement this program going forward. Mr. Jeff Blazowski of CASA 42 is the preferred supplier at this stage and will shortly be awarded a contract by the HIA to commence with the removal and eradication of the alien vegetation. The quotations received provide for a 12-month follow-up inspection period covering all areas cleared at no additional charge or expense for spot treating any visible re-emergence of invasive species. I think we must all understand that it isn't necessarily a question of going onto a site, seeing whatever invasives are there, whether you remove them mechanically or using chemicals or whatever. It's not a once-off exercise. You have to monitor it, and the minute you spot any re-emergence, you need to nip it in the bud, so to say, immediately. The prices that have been tendered allow for that 12-month aftercare period for the entire areas that are going to be covered. So, in the opinion of the trustees, it is good value for money in keeping those invasives at bay. The private property, if we've all read our MOI and the rules, this is the homeowner's responsibility, which will now be implemented by the HOA on the undeveloped sites throughout the estate. The individual member or property owner will bear this cost based on the competitive rate contracted by the HOA. For further clarity, if you'd kindly just refer to the rules, Rule 8.3, Maintenance of Removal Properties, which is to be found at page 21 of the rules. The thinking behind this is that, notwithstanding that this requirement has been vested as the responsibility of each individual homeowner right from the date that they signed and transfer took place, it has stagnated a little bit. And with more and more homeowners now taking residential occupation on the estate, the obvious concern is that they are doing their best maintaining beautifully landscaped gardens, and yet the neighboring property hasn't yet been developed. It hasn't been cleared of any alien invasives, and there's every probability of seed blowing from an uncleared site onto a beautifully well-kept, landscaped and manicured site, just creating ongoing problems. And that is why the trustees felt that to take the initiative into the HOA's quarters and manage it on a holistic basis, so we can start at the one side of the estate and progressively move forward throughout the entire estate, obviously focusing on those most rampant sections as the first priority. If we move on to 11.14, estate management, the concerns raised regarding maintenance of common property, ongoing focus on the estate entrance and Ingwe Drive to the circle, but almost zero thereafter. At completion of the estate construction phase, the estate common areas between the roadway curb edge and the property boundaries were seeded to promote the growth of wild grass coverage to bind the soil, preventing erosion, as well as into the proliferation of weeds. The estate entrance and Ingwe Drive stormwater swales, up to and including the Circle of Life feature and the turning circle, were professionally landscaped and planted. The boardwalk, centered between the down lane and the up lane of Ingwe Drive, was also professionally landscaped and planted. This covers the area from the turning circle down to the commencement of Trogan Close, with the verge area between road curb and property boundaries having been seed grassed. The verge area on either side of the cement roadway at Tinkerwood Close was planted with instant turf. The municipal road reserve area between the edge of the municipal road, providing access to the estate entrance, and the estate south-facing boundary wall was also grassed with instant turf and planted with indigenous trees in keeping with the theme of the estate. Throughout the estate, indigenous trees were also imported and planted at intervals within the verge or planting servitudes alongside all roadways. All of the aforementioned was executed at the sole expense of the developer and handed over to the HOA at commencement of the operational phase. In terms of the contract held between developer and landscaper, the landscaper was obliged to nurture and maintain all planted landscape as well as trees for a 12-month period, whereafter the ongoing maintenance and upkeep became the responsibility of the HOA. Ladies and gents, there's a list that follows that clearly indicates the extent of the areas of coverage that the HOA maintenance team conjunction with the services of the landscaping contractor has to cover. I won't delay in reading through each item, but they are all there plain to see. The HA has a standing SLA with River Projects, who attended to all original landscaping and planted areas which are now being maintained by the landscape contractor. All verges and other areas, as appear in the schedule above, are being cut and maintained by the HOA staff. 11.14, the Management of Contractors and the adherence to estate building control protocols, site presentation, and litter, etc. Yes, most certainly, this is an ongoing challenge and requires constant follow-up and dialogue with contractors, verbally and written, requesting they adhere to the environmental protocols, as well as the contractor obligation agreement. This, notwithstanding, each construction site has a resident environmental control officer accountable for compliance and housekeeping. In certain instances, due to the constraints for access to site, paneled sections of the construction hoarding fences are removed, and when replaced, not necessarily pulled tight. As this is an ongoing management burden, there will be no alternative other than to impose sanctions in the foreseeable future. It has become necessary for estate staff to collect litter when reported or noticed whilst maintaining common areas or routine inspections are performed. 11.15, plan structure to manage and increase the demand and responsibilities. Please refer to point 11.5 for the staffing and service providers. Any new staff will be addressed by the trustees as demand arises. Now, interestingly enough, this also links back to the presentation that was made by Rensha and also comments that were made by our chairman. We are cutting the coat to suit the cloth at the present time. As we get more into the happy zone, as we would call it, and the budgets become available for running costs become more sound, we most certainly will be looking at expanding the maintenance core of the Homeowners Association internal team to more than the two gentlemen that we have at the present time. So it's a bit of a juggling act to play catch up with where the priority areas are as the different challenges arise on a daily basis. But we will continue to endeavour to do our best.
Ian, can I just deal with 11.16, please?
Cool.
Can I deal with 11.16?
Yes, please, Wes.
So the 16th question was vehicle speeding. This continues to be an issue. What are the proposed solutions and who is bearing the cost? It's always going to be who's bearing the cost question for everything that goes into a state. One of the strategic reasons to have Dave Wilson and William Nicol on the trustees is Dave Wilson is a QS by trade and has worked and becomes highly acclaimed through his profession. And his main job is to measure buildings and adjudicate costs. William Nicol, on the other hand, is also a QS by trade and has an MBA. And whenever costs come into the trustees meeting, it is adjudicated if it's a development cost or if it is an owner's cost. So just to answer the question about the proposed solutions and who is bearing the cost, but I'll give you a typical example. A prototype model of the signpost has now been designed and approved by the board, and it is presented. It was presented to me, and will be procured and installed shortly. The access control protocol requires duty guards at the gates to inform any guests coming into the estate of the speed limit, because that's where it starts, at the entrance. Guest access codes generated via the My Estate Life now also update and include a display of 20 kilometers per hour. Fines are now being served on any reported to be speeding by a credible source of estate management, as well as apparentless reckless driving. The children's play area on B-Eater Drive is in the process of being fenced to prevent children in play running onto the field. The developer, which is not bearing a cost on the homeowners is also experimenting on a basis of traffic calming. So if you go in that area now, you will see developers undertaken to experiment to see if trees in the road slow people down, or if that becomes a greater problem in the area. But, you know, when you take a simple thing like speeding and you put a bump in the road, which is what the normal way of doing it would be, it takes away the design of what we've tried to achieve here. So we recognize speeding as a problem, and we are experimenting with solutions to try and curb it. If that works in Beta, then we might roll it out in other areas to slow down traffic. So that is an ongoing plan. I know in the next trustees meeting, we've been given quotations for speed bumps, which I'm opposed to at the moment. But I think that logic has to prevail, and that everyone should possibly just follow our lead in bumps or trees. So just to close that off, the developer on experimental basis as a traffic calming measure within the vicinity of the child play area is implementing the planting of trees strategically placed in the roadway along BE Drive in the Plains Loop. So just to mention that traffic is a major problem, but I also want to appeal to all the homeowners, because we are all guilty of speeding, and speeding lies with our responsibility. We can control what we do. We can only police what others do who don't live here. So we should take it upon ourselves also to understand our speed limits. And I'll let you carry on from 11.17 if you could.
Thank you, Chair. 11.17, the request was for the minutes of the HIO board meetings to be shared. These may be requested from the managing agent, Property Management Ignite. Renter's email address is provided, so please feel free to pop her an email requesting whichever documents you would like sight of, and she will make them available to you through her admin call at the offices. 11.18, at what point will the homeowners be able to vote on new board members? Folk, if you would kindly refer to Annexure L, page 38 of the MOI, subarticle 15,19.1. During the development period, the developer shall be the only member of the association holding the right to vote at any meetings of members. This means the developer will vote on any new board members during the development period. The developer has encouraged any homeowner to join a subcommittee who will report back to the trustees as mentioned in 11.5 above. 11.19, the Elaleni Leisure Centre updated from the developer. The department has undertaken to give us the record of decision during the month of October. The minute this is received, we will commence with construction. Access to these areas, both being the Coastal Forest Clubhouse as well as the Activity Centre, will only be via golf cart, walking or cycle, as the estate was not marketed with vehicular access to the Forest Clubhouse or the Activity Centre. In fact, vehicular travel within the coastal forest is prohibited as per the conditions of approval and environmental management plan. 11.20, will other Eleni estates also have access to this facility? Yes, most certainly they will share the facilities. 11.21, the Beach Clubhouse, please confirm. The developer will be taking occupation in January 2021 and intends to enjoy the use of the Beach Clubhouse for the entire summer of 2021. Construction will be commenced with during the winter months.
Can I just elaborate on the beach club? So what the intention is right now, the beach club is being zoned, and the zoning is anticipated to be complete by the end of this year. If that's the case, the intention is to take occupation in January And all that will happen is it will be the current property with a car park. So there will be no renovations, no upgrading of it. It'll be purely to utilize between the months of January through to June, July. Thereafter, during the winter months, we will do the renovations. I don't want to go into the questions now, but we will go through all the questions. I see there were questions: what will the costs be? What will the levies be? How will the financial model work? It's undecided at the moment. All we know, and we can tell you, is that the developer has secured a beach club. The planning of that beach club is dependent on the successful zoning. If that property is not zoned, another property or another proposal has to come through. It would be incorrect for us to give you budgets and levies now, because what we plan to do, we'll only be able to enact once we get the approval. We anticipate that approval coming towards the end of this year, in which case a whole presentation will be made on the beach club. And a typical example of the beach club would fall under parks and gardens and recreational facilities. A subcommittee would come in underneath that and would discuss different ways of the finance structure and when it becomes available to everybody. But the intention is that it's utilizable in January, pending we have a successful zoning. And to emphasize again, right now in the zoning process, it's going through a public participation process, which is being advertised, and I think is concluded on the first week of November-ish. Thereafter, we'll know if there's any objections. Thereafter, will be referred to the department for record of decision, and thereafter we have our zoning. So once that time parameter is complete, the developer then can put a financial model in place and recommend it through to the homeowners. Thanks, Ian. If you could carry on.
Thank you, Chair. If we move on now, folks, to 11.22, who will have access to this facility? All the Eleni homeowners residing within the Eleni Coastal Forest Estate, as well as the Elaleni Lifestyle Estate. Who is carrying the cost of construction? The developer. 11.24, I think our Chair Wesley has just touched on the calculation of levies. That'll come further on down the road, but there will be a monthly levy applicable for the operating costs of that amenity that will be available to all.
Ian, can I just elaborate on that point too? So is there a cost to the homeowners? Yes, there will be a cost. As I emphasized earlier on, the financial model of a levy or a debenture or a combination of both has to be discussed when you have a final business model. And just to emphasize again, when the developer has a finely zoned piece of land that we can take occupation on, we can put a business model together and we can present different models. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks. Moving on now, folks, to 11.25. Please confirm how the various Elaleni estates will be managed. Elaleni Coastal Forest Estate and the Elaleni Lifestyle Estate will have separate HOAs and have separate financials and books of account. There will be cost savings with natural synergies. Traversing right will be given and fences will drop between the estates only once the Elaleni Lifestyle Estate's security matches that of the Elaleni Coastal Forest Estate. These estates,
can I just pick up on that too?
Facilities.
I just want to pick up on that too. I want to know that there are two totally separate entities with separate homeowners association, separate income, separate costs, separate liabilities, different construction period, and different handover processes. So the only thing we'd be sharing would be traversing rights, and if there's synergies in terms of bringing down Eleni Coastal Forest Estates cost vis-a-vis security costs, management costs, accounting costs, those will be considered, and those two will come through the financial trustee, and those two can be discussed through the subcommittees. And that's why I emphasized in the beginning that as Eleni becomes home to everybody, those who are concerned and want to add value to the estate need to form those committees. So, thanks, Ian.
Thank you. 1126. At what point is it confirmed that development is complete in Elaleni Coastal Forest Estate? Folks, once again, if we refer back to Annexure M, page 8 of the MOR, Article 1.23, the clear explanation of the development period is to be found in that section, I believe. 11.27, rules on short-term property letting needs to be confirmed. The estate management and the managing agents are in the process of developing an agent accreditation process as well as a letting policy. This will be circulated and put on the website when complete. 11.28, what is the exact purpose of the current forest clubhouse, and are there any future plans for this area? To all intent and purposes, the clubhouse is complete, bar for the golf cart parking area to be established just shortly around the corner going down towards the first of the dams. The timber decks and the landscaping is yet to be completed. There will be a glass balustrade that is to be erected as a protective barrier to prevent people inadvertently falling into the dam.
Sorry, Ian, just be careful. Just be careful. It's not a glass balustrade. It is a balustrade. We started with a glass balustrade and ended up with black balustrading poles that people couldn't see. So don't be caught out on a glass balustrade. May not be. A balustrade is also going to be put in place.
Thanks, Wes. The clubhouse has an entertainment space, decks looking over the dam, a yoga studio, changing rooms, toilets, showers, and a meditation area, as well as the kitchen. On 11.29, is there a solution to cell phone signal, as the sales team advised us that boosters would be put into the fibre? At the present time, the HIA is looking into solutions with relevant service providers to try and find a tenable solution that will improve the cellular reception throughout the estate. 11.30, who's the new fibre supplier that Eleni has signed an SLA with? The company's name is IntraSurf Broadband, represented by Mr. Yanni Brown. The email contact address is there available for all to use should you so wish to make contact with IntraSurf Broadband. 11.31, is the hard coffee shop for residents only, or does anyone have access? The hard is designed in such a way to service the gates at Elaleni offices and estate residents. The outside space is a meeting area for anyone to use. There is no access to the estate without a code, so no public drop-ins to the coffee shop will be allowed unless visiting or given access by an owner. 11.32, an update on the land invasion on the boundary fence. The HIA has been privy to an order of the court authorising a Section 4(2) notice, which was granted on Friday, the 9th of October 2020. In summary, this is an instruction to serve notice on the illegal occupiers of the municipal land. Needless to say, as and when more clear-cut information is forthcoming, it will be disseminated and forwarded on via newsletters to all of the residents of Elaleni Estate. Having gone through all of the questions, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for giving me your time. I'd like to hand back to our chair now, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. What I'm going to try to do now is, right at the inception, there was a whole lot of questions that started coming through. I hope I've picked them all up. You're going to have to bear with me a little bit. I'm going to go right up to the top and then try and allocate Rensha, the first question to you, Rensha, is, do the homeowners not have a say in the financial sign-offs?
No, so you will,
And just click on mute.
No.
Okay, are you there? Perfect. Sorry, Jan and myself was also echoing, so we're back on track. So just in terms of that, if you look at the audited financial statements, you will note, or the financial review statements rather, that a director's responsibility and approval. So to answer your question, no, you do not need the homeowners to sign off the financials. I think we do respect that the owners have questions in the financials, and perhaps I see further on it says, can we have a separate meeting to review it? That's up to the directors if they feel they want to review it prior to signing it off, to justify why they signed it off. But ultimately, the responsibility and their duty is for the board to review it and to approve it and to sign it off in terms of the Companies Act. I hope I answered that, Leslie.
Okay. And then there's another question, can we have clarity on this? Based on what Rensha was saying now, and what I've said about the subcommittees, I would like the subcommittee to be formed on the finances, and that they can then meet with the trustee who handles the finances, and they can bring up the points in that under that item.
Perfect.
Okay. So, you know, there's a lot of questions that then go on to pertain to the financial strain the homeowners is under, and was there a discount given to the gates? I think that all should be covered underneath a subcommittee. Those questions are not prepared for in this meeting. It's the first time we've seen them. I think those things can be handled in the subcommittee. And then the feedback on the gates is not in line with what was discussed a year ago. That item I'm happy to deal with under the security, and anyone who wants to add value to the security is more than welcome to meet me on it. And then you've got more discussion on the gates. So the gates is an issue, and you know, there's two schools of thoughts about it. If you have a gate, what does it actually do? Does it stop someone from coming in? If it's an armed person, no. They will shoot the guard. But what it does do is it could create a hijacking point at the gate because you have to come in. So it's not that the questions were not answered. It's up to discussion, and it's for the homeowners to come in on the subcommittee to discuss these things. It wasn't a case of, oh no, we just don't put it in, and the answer is no. It was discussed between it. All trustees at varying points, and at that point we decided to open it up to a subcommittee to give us more indications of what we should go and do with it. So there's a question, Ian, I don't know if you want to answer this. Currently the upkeep of the landscape areas from the bottom of the forest apartments down to the clubhouse is full of weeds. What will be done about this? Do you want to elaborate on that, please, Ian?
Thanks, Mitch. As I mentioned earlier, we are running with a very limited maintenance call. To pick up on the maintenance, we just come out of the dry winter period, and with the recent rainfalls, there's a proliferation of weeds and so forth that has come back to the fore. As soon as possible, we will get the maintenance team back into their routine of having the verges cut all the way down as far as the English wall, and also along the strip roadway that leads down to the clubhouse. If folk can just bear with us, once again reiterating that with the team of 2 that we have, there are many other functions that they have to perform, but we most certainly will accord it the priority it deserves.
Okay. So then the next thing was, can you not include speed bumps into the design? Please advise the date to which these will be tested in action. So the testing is already taking place. Like I said in my address, if you go to Elaleni, there's 6 or 7 trees that have been put in the road. We've put stormwater around the trees to actually hit your tires if you drive into the tree to slow you down. And we are going through the quotes on movable bumps at the moment. So that is currently underway. And I just want to emphasize again, you know, we get people coming into the HA office literally on a daily basis complaining about their neighbors speeding. I understand there are guards, deliveries, not guards, contractors, deliveries that also speed, which is difficult to control. But I must emphasize again that the majority of people speeding are actually the residents of the state. So we must really take that initiative on our own. Rensha, could you please answer what does the development phase mean? When does the development phase end?
Yes, so basically the developer is still the developer of this development until such time he has completed or sold off the last property on this development. It's really that short.
Any questions which I can't seem to get to the bottom of? What are the intended levies for the Beach Club? I think I went through the Beach Club business model. The clarity on the cost, I think I went through that. Please clarify the definition of development period. You've just done that.
The short-term letting is always a hot topic. We had a proposal on how to deal with short-term letting. And I will put that out on a newsletter. I would suggest that the short-term letting gets handled underneath security, because I think it is a security issue. However, as much as in time, my parents will move hopefully onto the estate in December, my wife and I and our kids very shortly. The biggest issue on short-term letting would be the security and maintenance of our common properties. But I'm divided on whether or not you can stop it. In fact, I think legally you cannot stop it. So the best way to do it would be to embrace it, but to put measures in place that protect the residents and homeowners. But that is fully up for discussion. And that is again a reason why I would like you all to join which subcommittee you'd like to do and what you'd like, how you'd like to integrate in it. And those items I would like to see brought up underneath the security portfolio. We then got a question on what will Elaleni Forest benefit from lifestyle, if lifestyle is benefiting from Forest Clubhouse and Forest Leisure Centre. So that's a very interesting one. There's multiples of synergy. I think one of them would be financial, in terms of possibly the Beach Club. A vital one is we all know that there's the off-ramp coming to entertain the access to Seaton Dead Hole. So being able to access straight onto the highway right out of your estate, I think is a very, very pertinent item. The fact that there will be other leisure opportunities in that development would create possibly bigger places to park cars, so people wouldn't go down to the forest area with golf carts and cars. So I think that's a question that also can be dealt with more intimately once we understand the final design details. And then the next question on that same topic is, and how will the upkeep costs of the forest estate facilities be shared with lifestyle considering traversing rights? So I think that's a very good question. And again, that would be to enjoy with the subcommittee on finances, because guys, we all here to enjoy what Eleni has, and we must discuss those through together so that we all can be happy enough. I don't think I've got more questions than that, but what I'd like to say again is that if I've missed any questions, the minutes of this meeting and the recording of this meeting will unlock that, and this will be available for everyone to see, or homeowners have missed the meeting. So
that one you can confirm the last question.
what's it?
Please confirm the development phase refers to only in the forest estate and not to the lifestyle. These are two different estates.
Yeah, so there was another question. Please confirm the development phase only refers to Elaleni Forest Estate and not Eleni Lifestyle Estate. As I mentioned in the presentation, these are two totally different estates, different homeowners, different sale agreements, different commitments. It only shares a traversing right. For an example, Eleni Lifestyle Estate's getting its first herd of imbues on Friday. You'd be able to take your kids for a walk through the paddocks. You'll be able to house horses there, but you live on a different estate with a different set of rules, different set of trustees, different MOR, and most importantly, a different development phase. It's totally, totally separate. Don't miss anything else. And then I see there's one other thing, and perhaps the benefit of forest owners is that we can walk and run through the lifestyle estate. Correct. There would be all sorts of items like that. Okay, guys and ladies, I really have tried to answer questions. I'm fully aware that the estate's growing at a rapid rate. I hope that the homeowners now have a sense of comfort that the estate is not overwhelming the management. There is a well-selected bunch of trustees. There is strong management. There is a good financial plan going for it. There's an understanding of the financial management. And in closing, I would like to say to you all that the only way you can make your community better for us all is to engage. The old saying of throw a stone out of a glass house, I would say doesn't apply here. I want to embrace the community. I encourage all of you to do the same, and sign up for your subcommittee via the HA as soon as you feel which environment you'd be into. So consolidated points 11 and 12 together. Rensha, can you confirm that there's any other items that I need to address on the agenda, or can I close the meeting?
You may close the meeting.
Okay. Good night, everyone. I hope you feel a bit more comfortable in the information. It is a work in progress. We understand that. We have a lot of growth to do, but I look forward to sharing all of it with you. Thank you very much.